Hello everybody, and thanks for joining our webinar, Easy Order Entry with SalesPad Desktop. My name is Tom Rao and I'm the Sales Operations Manager at SalesPad. Quick call out first, if you have any questions throughout this demonstration, please feel free to enter them in the question box. At the very end, we'll stick around for about 10 minutes just to answer anybody's questions. Today we're going to be covering a few different things. So first off, we want to talk about some key factors of order entry, so things that you need to consider with your ERP as you're doing order entry. We're also going to go into some of the struggles that companies have with Dynamics GP in terms of order entry, and then we're going to transition into how SalesPad can help with a lot of those struggles. And then lastly, we're going to go into a demonstration of SalesPad so you can see everything in action. So first off, some of the key factors of order entry. So when talking about order entry and ERPs in general and distribution companies, everybody has their own process. So nobody does everything the same way. We get customers that come to us and they're completely unique from the next one. Now, as a general rule, you might have things that are similar from company to company, but usually there's something in your process, the way you do things, that's different from somebody else. So one size never fits all in that sense. You know, one company's inventory is going to be a lot different than the next, and you need a way that fits your process and how you're going to enter that inventory into the system. Now, talking about order entry, you know, obviously in a distribution type environment where the phones are ringing off the hook, it's very, very important that you have speed and also you have accuracy. If you have customers calling, you know, 4 or 5 at a time and you're placing their orders, you need to be able to place that order quickly, get the product out the door into the warehouse. So obviously with that speed, you have to be accurate as well. So you need a system that can allow you to catch your errors, to make it easy to navigate, all those sort of things. Also, you need the ability to multitask. So again, you're going to be in multiple orders at a time, or have multiple customers open at a time. You're going to be getting, you know, phone orders or email orders. You're going to be emailing customers with follow-ups, all those sort of things. So you need to be able to work in many places at one time and have it be easy to do so. And lastly, there's different order types for everybody. So some customers mostly take it over the phone. Some businesses take email orders. Some of them have their sales reps even putting them on paper and sending them in later. So you need to have a way to have a different process for each of those if you need to. And in SalesPad, we can help with a lot of that. Next, going into some of the struggles that companies have with Dynamics GP. So some of those struggles are, just general navigation of Dynamics GP, which is not necessarily specific to order entry, but Dynamics GP in general. So being able to navigate from screen to screen, from place to place, can be hard sometimes. A lot of companies will say there's too many clicks, too many windows. If I want to find one piece of information, I have to go into too many screens to do so. And when you have a customer on the phone that's wanting to place an order with you, you need to be able to find information quickly so you don't have to put them on hold. Also, low inventory visibility is a common complaint we have with customers using Dynamics GP before they come to SalesPad. So a customer calls you, they want to place an order with you, they want to know how much you have in stock or when you're going to get the next product in. You need to be able to find that on the phone, and that's not always the easiest thing to do with Dynamics GP. Something that we're going to cover a lot today that is a limitation in Dynamics GP is the ability to have additional options for item entry. So that means the way that I actually put my items on the order, whether it's just keying in a standard inventory item or if it's putting something with additional detail. Maybe that's configurable items, or you have items that have additional options to choose rather than just a standard widget. Whereas GP can be a little bit not as flexible in those situations. Also, one thing that we always talk about and we hear people complain about with Dynamics GP is I can only have one order open at a time. So obviously, going back to that multitasking conversation, if you have one order open at a time and you have to save and close every single time, it's going to take a while to actually get anything done. You're going to have to put customers on hold. You're going to have to write sticky notes. And SalesPad having the ability to have multiple orders open at a time is very useful. Transitioning into SalesPad order entry and how we make some things better with some of our features. So some key features that we're going to be looking at today in the demos. First off are item entry options. So again, this is all about how you enter your inventory items onto a sales order. We have tools for matrix style order entry. Maybe you have clothing that you sell and there's different sizes and colors. We can do non-inventory items. So we have plenty of our clients that do non-inventory and they need to purchase at the time of order. We have quick ways to do that. Configurable items. So whether that be goods that you manufacture and that are variable every time a customer can order, maybe they can do special orders. We can do that inside of SalesPad. We have the ability to do kitting and packaging, as well as item sales options. So for instance, if you're doing, maybe you sell plaques and you do some engraving and you want to do special messages, we give you ways to make that easier inside of SalesPad. We also have some really good copy functionality. So if you want to maybe create a template order or look at what a customer purchased in the past and create an exact copy of that, we can do that. We have additional plugins inside of SalesPad that offer different types of functionality. So some of those are being able to calculate profitability on a sales order on the fly while the customer is on the phone, linking to an existing purchase order or creating a purchase order on the fly, being able to do an Excel import. Again, we have customers that come to us and say, we get our orders in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. It would be nice if we could just import those right into the system and have all the line items come on there. So we can do that inside of SalesPad. Also, lastly, adding customer default. So if your customers are ordering the same thing all the time, rather than having to rekey those in every single time, we have a functionality that allows you just to take all of those items and put them on the document at one time. So I've talked about purchase order linking. We'll dive into that. Inventory visibility, again, that's huge when a customer wants to know what you have in stock at the time of ordering. You need to be able to answer that, and we can do that in SalesPad. We give audit trails to figure out who's touched the document, who's changed price, who's added line items, who's moved it from place to place inside of your process. There's also many areas for note taking, whether that's internal or external, so things that you're logging about your conversations with a customer that you don't want them to see, or external notes that you want to type out so the customer can see it when they get their order confirmation or something like that. There's also visual indicators, so if you have a backorder item, we can give you flags to show the user that that's out of stock or backordered so that they can know right away and tell the customer, so the customer doesn't think that they're getting something that you really don't have in stock. And lastly, we have some tools for direct sales entry. So in SalesPad, typically you go into the customer card, you start an order from that place, but we do have the functionality to do direct sales entry where you click a button, you pick your customer and order at the same time, and you get right into the order. At this point, we're going to transition into the SalesPad demonstration. Please don't forget, if you have any questions, please enter them into the question box and we'll make sure to hit those at the end. So first off, when you take a look at the screen, I have an existing order open. We're going to walk through a few navigation and user interface type things that are helpful to users, and then we'll transition into more of the item entry. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this ribbon to give us a little bit more screen space. So I'm going to break this order entry screen down into a few different sections. So at the very top left, we have your document properties. So these are really any header level things you need to know about your customer, ship date, sales rep, payment terms, those types of things, as well as shipping address, properties, and payment information about the document. At the bottom, I want to cover a few tabs. We're going to come back to the line item section when we do item entry. Hitting on the note section, so inside of SalesPad, we have the ability to let you do a number of different types of notes. So as you talk to your customers, if you want to put internal notes or external notes, like I mentioned before, you can do so. So you can see here I have an external customer-facing note, so maybe that prints out on a receipt for them or it sends to them in an email. And on the right-hand side, we have more of internal notes. So maybe I want to tell the guys out in the warehouse that a customer has a specific preference, or maybe to look over the goods a lot before placing the order or fulfilling the order for the customer. What you can also do in this note section is we allow you to name your own types of notes. So maybe you have a scheduling type note or a purchasing note, production, sales. You can name these whatever you want. The point is that we give you a number of different places to actually log notes. Going ahead a little bit, we also give you the ability to edit your addresses on the fly. So if you need to be able to change the ship to address or the bill to address, it's very easy to do so by just selecting the drop down here, or in the bill to section, you can do the same thing. We also have the function of giving you an audit trail, which is really, really important in order entry for the fact that you need to be able to track who did what to a document. So if somebody changed the price, or if somebody moved queues, or if somebody added a line item and they weren't supposed to, you can very easily see the username and the description of what they did, as well as the timestamp of when they did it to be able to track that. On this particular document, I also have a linked purchase order, and if you look at the Purchases tab, you're able to see that linked PO, and I could actually click into it to view that right from here. On top of just a general audit, we also give you an email audit. So anytime you send the customer a copy of a printed form, an invoice, an order confirmation, anything like that, it's going to write back to this audit log. You're going to see who sent it, who they sent it to, and you can even drill into the body of the email if you wanted to. So if I open this, it'll show exactly what I sent to the customer. And that would come to them in the form of an email. So if you had multiple emails, you could sort through these if you had to. The last tab I want to cover is the Interactions tab. So inside of SalesPad, we have several CRM type features, so customer relationship management type features. Interactions, what it allows you to do is sort of like notes, but this is more of a running log. So anytime you talk to the customer, anytime you do a follow-up, maybe you're calling the customer back to check in to see if they got their order, you can log those here. So there's a few things you can do. You can do general note taking. So if I go ahead and add one, I can do a subject, I can talk about the contact that I'm actually reaching out to at the customer, and then I could just log general notes. What you could also do with this is set it up as a task. So maybe once you place an order, you want to set a task up to follow up with them next week at the same time. At that point, you could actually name a date and a time for it, and we have a calendar where you can track it inside of SalesPad so you can keep track of all your follow-ups, which makes it easy. So you have the ability to just do general notes, but you can also email directly from this. So instead of having to jump out to Outlook or Gmail or whatever email client you use, you can email directly from SalesPad. So as you can see here at the very top, I actually sent an email to this customer, and I could view that if I wanted to. So if I click View Email, it's going to pull it up. I can see this is just an email that I sent to check in with them. I can see who I sent it to. If there were any attachments, I could view those as well. However, maybe I just want to send them a new one, so I can go ahead and click New Email, and very similar to Outlook, it's going to pop open a window. You can go ahead and select who you're sending it to from the customer easily. And anytime you send those, it'll log back to this interaction log. A couple of other things before we transition into the item entry portion. A few features that we have. So in the beginning, we talked about the ability to quickly copy a document for a customer. So again, a few different areas that this would come into play. So we have plenty of clients that have multiple stores. So they have a customer call, but we have stores all over the place that they want to order for. So they want to place an order with you, but they want that to go to 100 different stores. So instead of having to create 100 orders and rekey them in all at the same time, sometimes customers want the ability to quickly just copy that document. Another scenario might be maybe you create a template type order that you're going to reuse all the time, where you create that and instead of having to redo it every time, you simply copy it. So if you look at the top of the document here, I'm going to go ahead and click Copy. What this does is it gives me a window that lets me choose potentially a different document ID. So right now it's just defaulting to the same one, or I could even choose a different customer. So if I drill into this, maybe I want to place this for a different customer. It's the exact same order. Maybe it's a sister company or something like that. I could easily choose that. In this case, I'll just keep the same one. So if I click OK, it's going to open a new order for me with all the exact same information. And you can actually have it. So let's say this was an order that was placed a year ago and your prices have changed since then. You can have it automatically repriced based upon your new prices if you want to. But instead of having to rekey those items in that I already had, I just copy this document. It's the exact same thing. You could edit it. You could delete items if you wanted to. Going back to the order that I just had, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this one. What we also allow you to do is copy line items. So instead of copying a whole document, you could just copy one at a time. And I'm going to go into a customer card and create a new order and keep my old order open at the same time. So if I go back to my old order, let's say a customer calls and they ask me about this particular order and say, hey, I want one of those again. I can simply right click on this, copy to other document, go into the order and paste it. So it's a quick tool rather than having to rekey that in. Going back to the original document we were covering, another thing that I wanted to go into was our plugins. So inside of SalesPad, we have a number of tools that we call plugins. And again, these are pieces of functionality at the order level that allow you to do different functions. As a user, you can turn these off. You can have them turned off in security so that you don't have to access each and every one, which is what most customers are going to do. I want to highlight a few of those. So for instance, let's say you have sales reps, you give them a power to negotiate on the fly with your customers. So they call in and you say, hey, you can negotiate prices with them, but we always need at least a 20% margin. Rather than them having to pull out a calculator and write things down to negotiate those prices and potentially make mistakes, there's a plugin inside of SalesPad that quickly allows them just to click this. It opens a window and you can say, all right, if the customer is asking me what my bottom dollar is, I can go ahead and say I need to make at least 20% margin. You can see here all of the prices that I have. If I calculate this, it's quickly going to change all the prices to accommodate that 20% margin. I can reset this to start from scratch, and I can also click OK to apply it to the document. I could even go at the individual line level and say, okay, for this one in particular, we need 25% margin. I'll go ahead and click OK and apply it to my document. So those plugins, again, they offer additional functionality in terms of anything that your user might need, but you don't have to turn them all on. You can use whatever ones are particular to your business case. So now I want to transition to order entry and actually entering in some line items. So I'm going to go over into the order I created just a second ago. Now I already have one line item on here, but I'm going to go ahead and enter in a few different types. So I'm going to go ahead and click the new button. First off, you can do a standard inventory item. So if I want to do an HD 40 and type that in, pretty simple. I can go through and change the quantity. I can change the price if I have access to do that. So pretty straightforward. What's nice about this grid at the bottom as well is that I can move any of these fields around. So going back to the user interface and how easy it is to navigate, I can move these around on the fly. Also, I could add at any time additional user-defined fields that I have about my items. So some of our customers like to track things like height and weight and those sort of things, and being able to see those at the time of order, you could easily do that and simply just drag them and drop them on your grid. So that's a standard inventory item, pretty much the same as you're going to see in Dynamics GP. Going into the ability to quickly find an item, maybe you don't know the SKU of that item. So a customer calls and they just know that they need an audio system. So I'm going to go ahead and type in audio and tab off of that. It launches my inventory lookup window, which shows me there's a match for audio. It found an A100 audio system. From this screen, going into sort of inventory visibility, being able to see that on the fly with a customer. As you can see here, when I found that item, I can also see additional details. I can see each of my warehouses that it's located in. I can see on-hand quantities. I can see allocated, backordered, and I could even drill into those if I need to. We even get down to the bin level detail as far as where you have quantity. So again, you have power as a salesperson to know exactly where your items are in your inventory. So let's say I choose that. I'm going to go ahead and click this. You'll notice that it turns a different color, and we'll cover that here in a minute. What's also nice when you enter these in, we talk about being able to see inventory visibility. In the very top right-hand corner, you can always see what's on hand and what's available without having to drill into another screen. So as I highlight different items, you can see I have about 124,000 of these available. Going into a few different types of order entry styles that we have. So we have plenty of customers that are maybe in the clothing industry and they enter in shirts or pants. Those are SKUs that are going to be very, very similar, but they might have different colors, different sizes. Rather than having to type in every time the different SKU, they want a quicker way to do that. So we have something called matrix style ordering in SalesPad where you can type in a base SKU and it'll pop up a window for you to actually go through and enter your quantities. So if I want 5 small reds and 5 small blues and I tab through, maybe I need a couple larges as well, do some of those. I click enter and it adds all 4 of those line items to my grid. Rather than having to key in 9972L-SM-blue, quantity of 5, I just did that in about 10 seconds or less. Also in SalesPad, we have the ability to do configurable items. So we have 2 different versions of this, and it just depends on how your business functions and what one you would need. So first off, we have a configurator that really just takes groups of items, in this case a garage door, and as the customer calls me, I can give them different options as they buy. Maybe they want a different height or style of the door, so I can do that. So if I type in my base item number, it's going to pop open a window giving me, first I have to pick the width. So I can ask them if they want a 8-foot, 10-foot, or 12-foot. Maybe they go with a 10-foot. As I pick things, as I pick options in here, we can have different options drop down from that. So when I pick a 10-foot door, these are my options for height. I could pick an 8-foot high door. As I pick a panel style, maybe I pick the first one, it allows me to select those. And you can also have defaults in there. So every time you buy a garage door, you might get some of the same things, but you do have different options. Now, rather than having to key in all those individual item numbers, I just went through there. Now I can click OK, and it added all of those items that are associated with my choices to this. Some of them are backordered, which you can see by the color on this. Next on the list is our configurator that works with Dynamics GP's manufacturing module. So if you're using manufacturing in GP and actually using raw materials to build a finished good, we have a configurator that allows you to do that on the fly. You can basically build bill of materials for manufacturing on the fly. So I'm going to enter in a pretty simple one. I'll just do a computer and I tab off of that. It's going to pop open a window. In the background, I've built some logic into this. So it allows me to select, the type of monitor that I want for this computer package. Maybe I'm going to choose a 17-inch monitor. And you can see I get a green check mark that allows me to say that this is acceptable. With this configurator, we can add an additional detail, maybe a range. Maybe you're building a chair and you want to know how big is the seat back, and it can be between 10 and 15 inches. And if you choose something out of that criteria, it can give you a red exclamation point. But as I go through and choose these, you can see if I choose the 40 gigabyte hard drive, I have the option to do the 2 gigahertz processor. However, if I choose the 20 gigabyte and go down, I have 2 different processors that I can choose. I'm going to go back and select the 40 gigabyte, and all along the way I get pictures of the items. So for someone that's doing order entry, it makes it really easy for them to not have to know what to choose. They can just do it on their own. We can also do optional items. So if you want to do upsells or something like that, you can go ahead and select a printer on the fly. Once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and add and close this, and it will add actually this bill of materials that I just built on my own. And you can get very complicated with pricing structures, but that's just a simple example. Next, I'm going to go into what we call our item options. So if you can recall, I talked about maybe you have a company that does engraving. So you do plaques and you want to do congratulatory messages on those. We can do a various number of things with our item options function. So if I type off of this, I have a plaque that allows me to do drop downs. So I can do maybe I want a red one with a specific finish that's glossy, and I want to pick my trim as well, which is silver, and maybe I can do congrats on a great year. You could even set up additional charges. So if there's some type of engraving fee or painting fee or design fee on this, you could have that set up to choose it as a drop down. And again, I select those and it adds the proper line items to my document. So it's just a quicker way. If you go back into Dynamics GP, there's really no real way to do this other than maybe having a spreadsheet where your CSRs and your salespeople manage this manually rather than having the system drive the process. The last couple things I want to cover in terms of item entry are special ordering and kits and packages. So I'll hit kits and packages first. So in Dynamics GP, you can do kit items. However, you're limited to being able to edit those on the fly. So maybe you build a kit and there's certain quantity in there, but that needs to be variable. In Dynamics GP, you can do basic function. You can type in a kit. In my case, it'll show me my actual items that are associated with that. Again, this is a feature we have in SalesPad that you're not going to see in GP. So I have this kit. In SalesPad, we allow you to go above and beyond that. So if you actually want to be able to change your quantity of the components inside of that kit, we can do that. So if I want to do a different item, this HDBK-02, we actually call this a package, which is basically the same thing as a kit. But instead of only showing me my one line item, it allows me to see all of the line items that are inside of that kit, and I can change quantities if I need to. So it just allows you to have a little bit more flexibility than GP. The last thing I want to cover in terms of item entry is special ordering. So again, we have plenty of clients that they definitely stock inventory, but they also will place orders for really whatever the customer wants as long as they can source it. So in SalesPad, we have a number of different ways to enter in special items. So in my case, if I put a period before something, I can do a webinar item, and I tab off of that, I can actually just do on-the-fly special items. So I could type in my quantity, my price, maybe it costs $50, and I want to do a description of what this is. So this is a webinar item. As I tab through, I can enter in all of these things. It's asking me to reprice. I'll go ahead and say yes. What's nice about this is we can place this, we could purchase it on the fly, but let's say this is something we want to stock in the future. I could very easily just right click on this, and I could actually convert this to an inventory item at this point. So I could open that if I wanted to. However, we can make that an automated process as well. The last thing that I want to cover overall is being able to take a non-inventory item or a backordered item and quickly purchase that on the fly inside of SalesPad. So I'm actually going to go back to the order that I had originally up. As you can see here, I have an A100, which is a different color. So this goes to the visual indicators that we can give you for your line items. So I have this turn red, so the user knows automatically that this is a backordered line item and they can tell their customer. Whenever you have a backordered item, you have the ability inside of SalesPad to actually purchase this. And I'm going to actually add another one to my order, and I'm going to go ahead and purchase this. So we have a couple ways to do it. You can either purchase it on the fly, or if you have existing purchase orders out there, you could link it to that very easily. So if I go up to the top, this is another one of the plugins that I mentioned, attach sales line to purchase order. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. It's going to ask me to save. From there, it's going to pop open a window that's going to show me all of my open POs for this A100. So if I scroll down this list, you're going to see sort of a red and a green. Green means that I have a quantity available that I can attach this to. So if I scroll through this, maybe I'm looking at the promise date or requested date, and I could go ahead and just attach this. So if I go ahead and double click, you'll see that it reduces that quantity from 199, and I get a little chain link, meaning that's linked to this document now. And again, if I go into my purchases tab, I can see that there's 2 linked POs to this sales order. Now I linked one that already existed. I'm going to go ahead and purchase one on the fly. So if I do an A100, I'm going to go ahead and save this again, and it's going to pop up a little option for me to purchase this. So I'm going to click the purchase button. It automatically defaults to the default vendor for this item. I'm going to go ahead and create this PO. From here, we could change the quantity, we could change the cost, we could do whatever we have to, but once we're done with it, all we have to do is click save. It creates that PO in the background. I can close out of this, and again, going into this, now we have 3 linked POs from this screen. At this point, I'm done with my order. Now is when I would actually transition into moving this document through my process. Now, this is what we would typically call workflow. If you'd like to check out the workflow process in SalesPad, please check out our webinar, Eliminate Bottlenecks with SalesPad Workflow, that you can find on our webinars page or our YouTube page. This concludes the webinar today. If you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the question box and we'll answer those, or feel free to reach out to sales@salespad.net and we'll have your sales rep get in touch with you. Thank you.